Hello, and welcome to the Meditation Movement podcast with the British School of Meditation.
In this podcast, we will share all things meditation, including showcasing the wonderful work that our register of meditation teachers are doing all over the country and further afield in helping so many people benefit from this amazing practice.
Meditation and community are our two biggest passions, and we can't wait to share them both with you in this space.
So sit back, relax, maybe even close your eyes, and don't forget to breathe. We hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, and welcome to the Meditation Movement podcast. I am here today with Helen Farrell. Helen is a psychotherapist and meditation teacher. She runs Fresh Air Therapy and qualified with the British School of Meditation this year as a meditation teacher. So we're here today to talk about Helen's experience of meditation and what she's been doing this past year, teaching meditation and with her therapy. So hi, Helen. Lovely to speak with you.
Hi. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you for being here. So, Helen, you're based in Omagh in Northern Ireland, saying that right?
That's
Fabulous.
correct.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So before we go into kind of talking a little bit about your therapy background and your meditation teaching, could you give us a little bit of background about your own meditation experience? So, how you got into meditation yourself. How was that for you?
Yeah, well, I didn't even realize I'd started getting into meditation at the beginning because it was part of my yoga practice when I was a teenager. So we would do a class and then we'd have the Shavasana at the end where you're integrating the class. And our teacher at that time would do a body scan meditation as part of that process, which I loved. And I didn't realize at the time that it really was meditation. But I used to get so much from it, and to the point where actually I would sort of teach my friends that practice of body scan because I found it so relaxing myself, and I used to use it to help me get to sleep at night, to relax enough to go to sleep. So I kind of realized that not only was I learning meditation before I realized, I was actually also teaching it before I realized as well. So that dates back to when I was kind of 16, 17. But it wasn't really for quite a long time after that I started more of a formal, if you like, or conscious meditation practice. And that was really during the pandemic lockdowns. So I was working as a psychotherapist and a teacher of counselling students at that time. And I was really fortunate to join an online sort of peer support group for other practitioners. And one of the group would guide us through visualizations. And it was kind of the first time I'd done that in that guided sense, being guided by somebody else in that way. And it was so holding to be part of such a supportive group. And what was one of the things I really love about meditation in group is that you're having this really personal individual experience, but in a group setting. So you've got your own experience of it that's really personal. But then in the sharing afterwards, sort of hearing about other people's experiences and sort of connecting through that, I just really loved it. So that was so special for me that time, and it was such a really great resource to get through what was actually a really stressful period for me, that lockdown. And around the same time, I discovered that Headspace, the meditation app, offer free subscriptions to people who work in teaching, which I was at the time, which tells you a lot about teaching. that's so important. So I took that free subscription opportunity, but I've carried it on ever since. Because even though I've left teaching now, because I got so much from it, and I think it was really using their kind of beginners courses and following their classes and their daily meditations, as well as using their kind of sleep casts and their nature sounds for working and sleeping. So I kind of think I've used that app every single day since. And it really then all dates from that period, that lockdown period, kind of from there, really then deep diving into all sorts of different meditation styles since.
Amazing. So it sounds like you've had a kind of really varied experience of practices. I know you mentioned before we kind of started having this conversation that you also go to Buddhist meditation classes as well. Is that right? Is that something that you
Yeah.
do now as well still?
Yeah. So I discovered a Buddhist centre in Derry, Londonderry, over here in Northern Ireland, and I went along to a couple of sessions up there, and then was absolutely delighted when one of the teachers there started bringing classes to different centres across Northern Ireland, and he was coming down to the yoga studio, actually, where I teach meditation from, to deliver Buddhist meditation sessions, kind of more or less weekly. And yeah, I really love going along to those because for me, there's a really nice mixture between meditation opportunity, guided and in group, which I really love, but also hearing about Buddhist teachings, which is kind of a bit of a new area for me. And I just love the reflective space that offers, and this kind of mixture of a bit of active thinking, but as well as real time to sort of sit with what's there and reflect on it in meditation. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that. It's a bit of a new thing to me anyway. So yeah, it's really great.
Fabulous. And I love what you said about, you know, the group kind of meditating in that group setting. It really does make a difference sometimes, doesn't it? Even if, you know, whether it's online or in person, sometimes, you know, if we have that regular routine of meditating ourselves, being in that group environment can just, it can kind of change our experience in a way,
Yeah.
can't it? Because you have those other people to, you know, reflect things off or have discussions with.
Mm. And there's just something so nice about doing something that's so inward and so you could almost sort of see it as a very solitary, isolating experience. When you go so deep into yourself and just be with your own presence, that could be quite separating from other people. But I think one of the things, particularly about Buddhist meditation, is that it invites us to think about the oneness that we all share and that non-duality. And when you meditate in group, you're really aware of that because you're all there doing this really inward individual practice together. And I just love how those things kind of combine. There's something really, I just find that really special. And I know when I hold groups myself, to kind of watch people connecting to each other, even though they're doing their own thing. Yeah, there's something really magic about it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of reminds me of I know when I first started to practice meditation, I learned in a monastery in Cambodia, and I'd go to the monastery and it would people would just sit and meditate together, and there'd be groups of people, and we'd be meditating for about an hour or so, and then at the end you could just, you know, people would just smile at each other and there would be that connection. I think nobody spoke English in that space, you know, probably just me, but you
Mhm.
felt really connected to people even though we hadn't even spoken because you were in that. And I think that you can still even feel that online sometimes, can't you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, hearing about your meditation experience yourself has been amazing. And I'm just wondering whether, you know, what kind of helped you to make that step to kind of go on to teach this or bring this into your therapy? So I'm assuming you were already working as a, well, you said you were kind of on an online support group for psychotherapists and counselors. So what kind of led you to thinking, you know, maybe I want to start introducing this to my clients?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. So I qualified as a practitioner about 8 years ago, just over 8 years ago, and been working really full time as a practitioner for the last 3 or 4 years. And I think it all kind of came together around the same time. So during that lockdown time and recognizing the value of um, kind of bringing yourself into stillness and where the body and the mind kind of meet. So I describe when I'm teaching using the breath as like the bridge between the body and the mind, because obviously the breath happens in the body all the time, but when we consciously bring our awareness to our breath, it's like our mind gets involved in that process. And for me, using the breath as our focus kind of brings the body and mind into the same place, because often our mind is somewhere else than where our body is. And I've just recognized that when I'm working with clients in therapy sessions, that's often the case, that their minds and their bodies are in different places. Their body's physically in the room with me, but their mind will be maybe in the past or worrying about the future. And that's really valid. And there's often lots for us to explore there. But there's something really important about having, at least at the moment, at the beginning, kind of creating a bit of space for, okay, let's just be here. Let's come together here. Let's let the body and mind catch up with each other. And that also allows for them to kind of connect with me and for me to connect with them, because I would do the same. We'd kind of do some breath together just to kind of really start the session from a slightly more grounded, gathered point of view. And it's not, I wouldn't necessarily even say that that's a meditation. It's more just a kind of a using a meditative element to start the work. So that's something that I started to notice clients really benefiting from. Not all clients needed it, but those particularly who were holding lots of anxiety and coming to sessions very, very highly energized and very highly aroused, it found it quite helpful to kind of bring themselves into a slightly more still place. So that was kind of where that started. And then doing the visualizations with the group, I discovered, well, the particular form of visualization we did was kind of like almost an inward imaginary journey to access inner wisdom. So we would be guided through particular landscapes or to meet people or beings that may have messages or wisdom for us. So it was quite storytelling type visualization. And I was always amazed at the things that my mind would offer me in those, once I'd kind of entered that really receptive, the different brain waves going on and kind of being in that more creative, expansive state of mind, that when we were kind of prompted to ask ourselves various questions, the answers that came through were like, wow, I didn't know I had that resource in me. There's wisdom there that I never would have credited myself as having or been able to get at when I'm kind of in my normal state of being. And I thought, God, there must be something really valuable here that I can share with my clients. So I started to learn a bit more about how that works and starting to offer that to clients. What about if we just take a moment to go inward? And sometimes it would be a whole visualization journey, and other times it's just, depending on who I'm working with, sometimes it's just drop in and just ask yourself that question to an inward part of yourself. And some clients can just find it really straight away. Others like to have the fuller experience of that. And I have worked with people where I do what's kind of like, I describe it like a therapeutic meditation. So it's not necessarily an ongoing counselling relationship that I have with them, but they maybe just contract with me for 1 or 2 sessions where we are just doing like a bespoke meditation. So they might come and say, oh, I've got this thing that's going on. I could really do with getting into my inner resource about that. And so we'll use meditation to kind of get to that state of consciousness where you can really connect to your inner resource. So that's kind of where the two meet for me. And it can be so creative with it because there's so many different ways to work with meditation. And sometimes it's quite embodied. So I also qualified as an embodied psychotherapist. And that's really, again, looking at how the mind and the body connect to each other, which obviously is a really important part of meditation. And so sometimes when clients describe a particular emotion or feeling, it can be quite a physical sensation. Sadness often feels very heavy in the body, or anxiety can feel very activated. And so if a client has a sense of that emotion in their body, we might again use a meditative technique to kind of drop in and connect inwardly to where that is felt in the body, and then breathe into that and be really present with the breath as it enters and leaves that part of the body. And just noticing then, what comes along. Is there color, texture, heat, sound, words, images, memories? Does the feeling in the body move? Does it change? Does it spread? Does it shrink away? And just seeing what happens there and allowing the body to respond in whatever way it needs to. And sometimes there's a release, there might be tears, or it might just move away. And often clients say at the end, it's just gone. I just feel lighter. There's just space where there was previously real kind of heavy stuckness. And that's really just using meditation. It's just kind of using that, being with the breath, being still, going inward and just connecting to what's there. And it's really that meditation idea of just being with what is, without judgment, without resistance, just meeting it openly. Because what I've learned about our emotional states is that when we have an uncomfortable one that we don't enjoy, our instinct is to kind of resist it, push it away, make it go away, ignore it, hope it will stop. But actually, when we apply kind of a meditative state of mind to it and really lean in, like lean towards it, turn towards it, lean in, breathe into it, and give it space, kind of put it center stage, it's never as scary as people anticipate it's going to be. And invariably, something happens. There's some kind of transformation of it. An insight might come, or release might come, or understanding or acceptance. And I don't know how, I mean, I've been practicing for a number of years, but I can't think of another way of working with that meditation offers that would be as effective as that. So yeah, it's such a kind of an integrated part of my work now that I almost have to remind myself that's what I'm doing, because it just seems to fit so logically for me.
Yeah. So it kind of just happens naturally as part of that kind of process
Yeah,
with you.
yeah. And I would tell clients when I start working with them that that's a feature of how I work. And
Yeah.
then it happens quite organically. And I'm always surprised how, because it would be easy, I think, to assume that certain clients are going to be more receptive than others. But I've been really surprised by that, how, because it just flows. It's not something I'm kind of going in with this idea, I'm going to do this with this client today. It just kind of evolves out of what's coming through. And yeah, it's always amazing how it fits together and how clients can just drop into that state of connection, even clients who would never have meditated before and wouldn't really have any experience of that, because it's so natural. I think it's actually a really natural state for the body and the mind to be in together. I think we just don't tend to offer it to ourselves very much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. I was just wondering, as you were kind of talking about that, do you find that, you know, as it is a natural part of the process, and perhaps if you don't necessarily label it as meditation, so to speak, do you find that people are a bit more open to kind of, working in that way, or do you ever have any resistance to, because there still is a little bit of a misconception of meditation, isn't there? That
Yeah,
it's,
yeah. I mean, yeah, I think probably the way I would describe it, if I needed to, is perhaps describe it as a meditative state.
mm,
And maybe that helps people access it a bit, rather than, yeah, as you say, it kind of being meditation, quote unquote. Because if people aren't used to that, they might come with ideas about it. So I might say, oh, it feels like there's a moment here to drop into a more meditative state to connect to what you're describing. And yeah, it seems to make sense to people, and it seems to allow space for that. So yeah, and I guess I would have said, as I say, at the beginning of the work together, this is something that I would integrate. Um, and I would tend to get a sense then if people were a bit like, oh, I'm not sure about that. That doesn't feel like it's right for me. And if it isn't, then I wouldn't go that way with people. So it's very individual.
yeah, fabulous. Well, it sounds like it's very beneficial for, the clients that you work with and in that process.
Mm.
So you trained with the British School of Meditation last year, so you qualified this year.
Mm.
So what was your kind of reasonings for wanting to kind of have that formal qualification in meditation? Why did you want to kind of go down the route of doing the course?
I think a couple of reasons really. One is that because I was finding I was doing this in my therapeutic practice, I think there was a bit of thinking, I'm doing this quite instinctively, but it would be really useful to have a bit of a framework around it, kind of more formalized understanding. So I kind of make sure that I'm optimizing what I'm doing and I'm doing it safely and in the right way. So I wanted to have a bit more of a formal understanding for the work that I was already doing. But also I thought, this is like one client at a time, which is wonderful, but I wonder if there's scope for working perhaps with groups and doing more. Which the course beautifully helped me kind of prepare for. So that was it really, was kind of, yeah, making sure that what I was already doing was kind of as best I could, and also seeing, well, what else is possible? What else might I be able to do following on from this?
Yeah. Fabulous. So since doing the training course, you have started working with groups, haven't you?
Mm.
So could you tell us a bit more about what those group sessions entail, what that looks like? Is that something that's separate to your therapy work, or is it something that's
Yeah.
combined?
Yeah, no, it's really separate. So I actually do sort of three different contexts, if you like, for my sessions. So I do monthly in-person sessions at the yoga studio in Oma, beautiful studio, Root to Rise, and it's just lovely. And that's where I go for my Buddhist meditation group. So we meet there once a month, and each month we have a theme. And because I'm a nature-informed practitioner, the theme for each month will tend to be something related to the seasons, or what's happening in nature at that time. And so we meet, and I would talk a bit about the time of year and what's happening in nature. And then we would do a variety of different meditative practices, usually start with some breath, and there's usually a visualization, and then something else. A lot of the group are quite big fans of loving kindness. So we'd often do that together. So that's really nice. I've got a kind of a regular group that come, and different people drop in and out as they can. So that's once a month in an indoor setting. And we're also really lucky. We've got a beautiful forest nearby called Seskinor. And I started doing outdoor sessions there during the summer, which were really popular. And I kind of thought people would be a bit shy of doing them through the darker months, but actually people they're really sort of saying, can we carry this on, maybe thinking about daytime ones so it's still daylight, or even doing them at dusk or after dark. So we start with a mindful walk through the forest, and every now and again I might pause and just draw attention to something in the forest that's kind of pertinent to the season. And then there's a gorgeous copper beech tree, huge copper beech tree by the side of the path. And I leave chairs under there at the beginning, and then we kind of sit in circle under the copper beech, and we do a meditation there, generally a kind of a body scan breath meditation. And it's kind of a bit of a forest bathing type idea. So that the particular meditation we'll do under the beech tree, I would invite them to really pay attention to what the forest is offering in terms of the sounds. So there will usually be the sound of the wind in the leaves, sometimes the sound of rain, sometimes there's a bird calling, sometimes there's other people as well. So I try, make sure we don't try and resist the noises, people walking by and talking, but that's part of the experience. And obviously being outside, you've got a lot more input from the weather. So people might notice that they feel cold, or they feel warm, or they can feel the rain. So noticing that, any smells that they can have. And I invite people to kind of put their hand down and feel the leaves or the soil or ferns or whatever's near them. And that's really beautiful. And I think I probably get as much from that as anybody else, because I just love being in the woodland. And the forest there is really lovely. So I do those. I'm kind of looking at when's the best time now, as we've gone past the equinox and the nights are getting really long, to kind of think, when's the best time to do that, because obviously it has to be safe working outdoors. And then I also do online sessions, because I do live in quite a rural area, and it's a nice way to connect with a wider audience. So I do an online 5-week beginners course, which I'm partway through with one group at the moment. And then I follow the wheel of the year. So this is a kind of a natural calendar, and it has 8 points throughout the year, that are kind of marked at the top and bottom by the summer and winter solstice at the longest and shortest days. And then between those two, there's the spring and autumn equinox. And we've just had the autumn equinox, that day when the day and night are of equal length. And then between those, you've got Lunasa, which is Lammas, Harvest Festival, Samhain, Halloween, Imbolc, St. Bridget's Day, and Beltane, which is May Day. So there's kind of like every 6 to 8 weeks, there's some point in the calendar to reflect on and look at what's happening in nature, what's the energy of that point in the year. And I do online sessions to kind of connect to those. And in fact, I had the autumn equinox one this morning, which was really lovely. So I really love doing those as well, because it keeps me kind of really connected to what's going on in nature, as well as inviting other people to come with me.
Amazing. That sounds fantastic. Especially the woodland experience. It just sounds incredible. I wish I lived close by and I could come and join you. It sounds
Yeah.
fantastic. So with because I think sometimes like with the Wheel of the Year work, a lot of that is very nature inspired. And, I think meditation really fits well with that, doesn't it? And I can see, sometimes how you know, rightly or well, probably wrongly, we might not necessarily associate, you know, therapy work and, you know, things to do with the mind with that nature base, but it all fits together, doesn't it? It all, because it's all just about us connecting to nature. We are part of nature.
We are. And I think there's something really valuable about how it brings us into the present moment,
Mm,
because I think particularly where we live in on the globe, you know, in the UK and in Ireland, we have these very marked seasons through the year. Not everywhere in the world has that, but we do. And I think we might have our favorite seasons, and we might have times of the year which we don't enjoy, and you know, I find winter quite difficult, but it's important, I think, to, if we acknowledge the seasons and we can really see what's going on in the world, even if we live in a city or a town, you know, you can still see the seasons around you, whether it's just to do with the temperature and the weather, or what's happening on the trees or the flowers. There's always something that tells us what time of year it is. You know, you look out your window, you could probably guess, and that keeps us very located in the present moment. And that's what meditation is all about. It's about being here now in this moment. And if we connect to nature, especially being outdoors, it's changing all the time. Every moment in nature, there's something happening. There's wind that's moving something, or there's an animal that's moving, or there's a flower that's growing, or a leaf that's falling. And being there and witnessing that and being part of that just reminds us that this is now, this is it, this is where we are. And that's what meditation also wants us to do. It wants us to come into this moment here, that's all we've got. And I think being connected to nature just helps us do that. It just keeps us in that moment.
yeah, absolutely. That's such a lovely way of putting that. Yeah. My mind's kind of, yeah, my mind's going off now and thinking of all of these wonderful ideas. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Well, it's been so lovely to chat with you, Helen. Do you have any upcoming classes? I know you mentioned that you've got your online courses, and so I'm assuming your next Wheel of the Year session will be for Samhain in October. Yeah.
Yeah, at the end of October. That'll be they're often a morning one, but maybe for Samhain it might be evening. That feels a bit more appropriate to do a kind of a nighttime one. So that'll be online, yeah, towards the end of October. My class in OMA, we meet on the first Tuesday of every month. So in fact, we've got our October one next week. And I've got a beginners course, a lunchtime beginners course starting in the middle of October. So that's the next cycle for that one. So yeah, I try and offer different times of day because people have different working patterns and different times of day suit. So I sort of move things around. The current beginners course is happening in the evenings, and then the next one will be lunchtimes. And yeah.
Wonderful. And so is all of that information on your website? If there'll be a link
It's
to
on my
all that.
website, yeah, and my Facebook page is quite a good place to keep up to date with kind of more immediate things. So that's Fresh Air Therapy on Facebook, or on Instagram, actually. I'm there too.
Fabulous. So we'll make sure to share that along with this episode so people can go and have a look if they'd like to join you. Thank you so much for for sharing this space and sharing about your experience and all of the amazing work that you're doing with meditation. I just have one question which I like to kind of close off these podcasts with. So I apologize. I always say putting you on the spot, but I'm sure that you'll be well equipped to answer the question. If you were to offer one piece of advice to somebody who was just starting out in their meditation practice, either to kind of get started or to help in their practice, what is there anything that you might say, or do you say to your clients, your students?
Yeah, I think to try different styles, because one of the things I really enjoyed about the training course with the British School of Meditation was really learning about the different styles of meditation. I had done body scan, and I'd done guided visualizations and a bit of breath meditation, but I'd never done chanting, I'd never done mindful walking, I've never done Zazen. So there were a number of different things there that I was like, oh, that really works for me. I really love that. Really loved the chanting, and like, oh, I can read, because I'm an embodied practitioner. I was like, oh, I can feel that in my body, and that's amazing. I love that. But I also know that for some people is just really like too confronting, it just doesn't work at all. So I think there's a real benefit to trying lots of different styles and using things like Insight Timer and Headspace to try different ones, because different guides' voices, some will work, some won't. trying at different times of day. So just trying lots of different stuff out, different styles, different lengths, and just see what works. Because with meditation, it's not like there's just one way to do it and that's that. And if you don't like it, then that's tough. There's so many different ways to practice and to enjoy it. So I think try lots of different things, try different teachers, try different styles, and find something that works for you, because I'm sure there will be something out there that will really resonate.
Thank you. And what a lovely way to end. I'm sure that will be really helpful for people to hear. So thank you so much again, and good luck with your upcoming classes and courses. And I'll look forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Catherine. Thanks for having me.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.